scene opens with a fast-paced montage of black and white archival footage from the early years of World War II, explosions, marching armies, and anxious civilian faces. The montage slows and dissolves into a map of Europe in early 1944, dominated by the dark colors of Axis occupation. Narrator. By the dawn of 1944, the world had been engulfed in the flames of war for over 4 years. The Axis powers, though strained, still held a formidable grip over a vast continent. Yet, beneath the surface, the gears of a global counteroffensive were grinding into motion. This year would not be just another chapter in the conflict. It would be the year the tide turned decisively, the year the foundation of Fortress Europe began to crumble under the relentless weight of Allied power. From the frozen steppes of the East to the bloody beaches of Normandy, 1944 was the beginning of the end. The Eastern Front. Unleashed. An animated map dramatically shows the sweeping movements of Soviet forces pushing westward. The scene cuts to archival footage of Red Army soldiers and T-34 tanks advancing across muddy fields and through ruined cities. Narrator. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union unleashed a storm of steel and fire. After 900 days of starvation and struggle, the Red Army finally broke the brutal siege of Leningrad, a symbolic victory that fueled a renewed spirit of vengeance and liberation. This momentum culminated in the summer with Operation Bagration, a colossal offensive aimed at the heart of the German war machine. The operation was an overwhelming success, annihilating the battle-hardened German Army Group Center in a matter of weeks. With unparalleled ferocity, Soviet forces surged through Belarus and eastern Poland, pushing the front line hundreds of miles westward and bringing the war ever closer to Germany's doorstep. D-Day, the longest day. The scene shifts to the tense gray morning of June 6th. Close-ups of determined but anxious Allied soldiers packed onto landing craft, staring towards the unseen shore. This is followed by explosive footage of the landings on Omaha and Utah beaches, with machine gun fire kicking up sand and water. Narrator. As the Soviets advanced in the east, the Western Allies prepared for the most ambitious amphibious invasion in history. On June 6, 1944, D-Day arrived. Under a sky filled with aircraft and paratroopers, over 150,000 Allied soldiers stormed the heavily fortified beaches of Normandy, France. The fighting was savage, particularly on Omaha Beach, where American forces faced a wall of German fire. Simultaneously, paratroopers dropped behind enemy lines to sow chaos and secure vital bridges. After weeks of brutal attrition, the Allies broke out from the Normandy beachhead, beginning the race across France. Liberation of Western Europe. Joyful scenes of Parisians celebrating in the streets, waving French and Allied flags. Allied tanks and soldiers are greeted with flowers and cheers as they parade past the Arc de Triomphe. Narrator. The breakout from Normandy triggered a rapid collapse of the German position in France. On August 25th, Paris was liberated, an emotionally charged moment that symbolized the restoration of freedom to Western Europe. Allied armies, energized by their successes, swept through France and Belgium, freeing city after city from 4 long years of occupation. The advance was swift, pushing the Germans back towards their own borders and demonstrating that the Western Front was now an unstoppable force. The Pacific Grind. A map of the Pacific Ocean illustrates the island-hopping campaign, with arrows showing the path of U.S. forces. The scene cuts to intense footage of U.S. Marines fighting in dense jungle terrain on Saipan, followed by massive naval battleships firing their guns during the Battle of Leyte Gulf. Narrator. Half a world away, the war in the Pacific raged with equal intensity. The United States continued its grueling island-hopping strategy, a bloody crawl across heavily defended islands toward Japan. The Battle of Saipan was a brutal and costly victory that brought US B-29 bombers within striking range of the Japanese mainland. This was followed by the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in history, which resulted in a decisive American victory and shattered the remaining power of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Germany's last gamble, the Battle of the Bulge. The scenery changes to the snow-covered forests of the Ardennes in winter. German panzer tanks emerge from the trees, surprising American positions. The focus shifts to U.S. soldiers huddled in frozen foxholes defending against the onslaught. Narrator. Facing imminent defeat, Hitler launched one final, desperate offensive in the west. In the dead of winter, German forces smashed through a weakly held section of the Allied line in the Ardennes forest, creating a bulge in the front. The surprise attack caught the Allies off guard, but their lines did not break. At the crucial crossroads town of Bastogne, the surrounded 101st Airborne Division famously defied German demands for surrender, their heroic defense becoming a symbol of American resilience. After weeks of vicious fighting in the bitter cold, the German offensive was halted and pushed back. Conclusion. A split-screen visual appears. On one side, American and British forces advance from the west. On the other, Soviet armies push from the east. The two forces are visibly squeezing Germany between them. The screen then shows a final montage of the year's key moments: Leningrad, D-Day, Paris, and Bastogne. Narrator: Germany's last gamble had failed. By the close of 1944, the Axis war machine was broken on all fronts. Squeezed between the hammer of the Western Allies and the anvil of the Soviet Union, the Third Reich was collapsing. The monumental efforts and sacrifices of this single year had shattered the illusion of Axis invincibility and paved a clear, albeit bloody, path toward final victory. The war was not yet over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The stage was now set for the final, dramatic downfall of the Axis powers in 1945.